Welcome to What the Ish. I'm your host, Patricia San Pedro. On today's podcast, I welcome my breast cancer Link of Hope survivor sister and activist, Carolyn Newman, as we share our personal dance with cancer stories. We are joined by the brilliant Dr. Ashwin Mehta, Medical Director of Integrative Medicine Program at Memorial Healthcare System, to discuss Healthcareish and the importance of treating mind, body, and soul to improve our quality of life and achieve wellness. I am excited about today's podcast. I know it will be fun, but it's also very informative and important. I'm thrilled to welcome both of you today. Welcome, Dr. Mehta.
Thank you, Pat. Delighted to be here.
And my Link of Hope sister, Carolyn Newman.
Happy to be here with you.
We are recording today, as you know, in the midst of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We're both wearing pink, but as I always like to say, breast cancer is not an October disease. I was thinking of where to start because there's so much, and then I had an aha moment. When we first spoke, Dr. Mehta, I asked you about your ish, and your response was healthcare-ish. So maybe we can start there and see where it flows. And then Carolyn, you and I at some point, we can share also about our own dance with cancer. How does that sound?
Sure, absolutely. I think it's a great start.
Okay, Dr. Mehta, healthcare-ish.
Sure. So when I mentioned healthcare-ish, what I was thinking of is all the aspects of health that are oftentimes not covered during a very traditional medical consultation. Oftentimes, nutrition recommendations aren't covered, and an exercise plan is not covered. Good sleep practices are often not covered. So, we are so constrained as medical professionals, especially these days, working on the front lines of healthcare, and many of us are directly involved with people who are sick from COVID-19. So in that context, because of the scarcity of resources, primarily time, what ends up happening is that a lot of these aspects of what ought to be real healthcare are not generally spoken of, are not generally covered, and that's unfortunate. Because I tell my clients, particularly in those clients who are living beyond cancer and breast cancer, that what we do on a regular basis, as far as hydration, nutrition, movement as medicine, good sleep practices, and stress management, that has a much greater bearing on our overall longevity and health than any prescription drug that I can prescribe. And arguably, the tools that we use in mainstream medicine, very, very high technology lab data and assays, wonderful imaging. We have, surgeons who are incredibly gifted. We have radiation oncologists who are just phenomenal physicians. And what we do in the integrative medicine space is we fill in those gaps. So we really empower our clients to use positive health behaviors on a regular basis in order to improve quality of life and really help our immune systems function as optimally as possible throughout the spectrum of cancer care. So when I said healthcare-ish, I think that, I'm so proud to work for an organization like Memorial, where we have invested in a comprehensive integrative program, and we have a support services infrastructure that is really bar none. And so I think that healthcare is now understanding that we have to move the headquarters of health from hospitals and clinics into a dialogue over the dining room table. Into schools, into faith-based community organizations, into our workplace. That really is where prevention and integrative health really shine. And so I think that we are evolving to a value-based healthcare model that addresses what I've long considered healthcare-ish.
Mhm. And how, so walk me through the process, I guess. You know, both Carol and I have been through cancer. And my first step is usually was go see an oncologist or an oncological surgeon. How does that work with an integrative medicine?
Sure, and that's a really great point, Pat, because we want to make sure that there's no confusion between integrative and alternative medicine. Alternative medicine is using these modalities that we offer in place of the standard of care, and that's certainly not what we do. We are more complementary. So how I describe it is that if the body's a garden and cancer is an unwelcome weed, it's the job of the oncologist and the radiation oncologist and the surgeon to eradicate the weed. It's our job as an integrative medicine team to help everyone nourish and strengthen the garden. And once the weed has been eradicated, to make sure the soil of the garden is as inhospitable to that weed ever coming back. So I also describe integrative medicine as kind of slow medicine, because the nutritional changes that we make today don't necessarily impact us tomorrow. But if we stick with it, if we stick with these nutritional guidelines, then a week from now, perhaps a month from now, certainly a year from now, we will have very significant changes in our microbiome, in the overall inflammatory burden in the body, in how capable our immune system is at functioning optimally. So integrative medicine is slow medicine, and most of what we practice in modern medicine is fast medicine. So when you combine fast medicine with slow medicine, that's when we find our patients really get the best outcomes. And so that's how integrative medicine serves a role. And we hope to see anybody who has been diagnosed with cancer, we hope to see them as soon as possible, because a lot of the modalities that we use, whether it's acupuncture or therapeutic yoga or better sleep quality, all of these things, they work, but they work very gradually in order to improve quality of life. So we want to take a more proactive and preventative approach and make sure that we see people as soon as possible, as early as possible in their cancer journey.
And it sounds people should do this, see integrative doctors before a cancer diagnosis.
Well, ideally, yes. And we have kind of organically grown to serve, physician wellness. We have physician wellness consultations. We do a lot of work with patients who are experiencing chronic pain, headaches, inflammatory bowel concerns. So, we kind of have evolved to use these modalities within other patient populations as well, but certainly the way that we grew was within Memorial Cancer Institute, and it's been a really wonderful 6 years.
Carolyn, you want to tell us a little bit about your story?
Yes, I just want to say, if it wasn't for the integrative part of the cancer treatment that was offered at Memorial, I may have gone somewhere else, but I realized that the treatment that I could get as a breast cancer patient, it combined both Eastern and Western philosophy so much. It was so integrated into the care. When I was diagnosed 15 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 3C triple negative breast cancer at the age of 42. And my word today is optimistic-ish. And, when I was diagnosed, I actually knew somewhere deep down that I had called this cancer up, that I was going to get cancer at some point in my life, based on my family history, based on the lifestyle that I was living, that it was a very good possibility. But yet I was optimistic-ish. I was also pessimistic-ish. And when I first was diagnosed, it was such an abyss. And I realized that, when you're diagnosed with cancer, you have to treat the whole woman, and you can't just treat the breast. That when you're diagnosed, as you know, Patricia, you're in a deep hole, and you need more than just treatment. You need the soul taken care of, the mind and the body. And integrative medicine was the reason I decided to go where I went for treatment as a breast cancer patient, because I realized that I had very little control over most everything. But the one thing I had control over was my mind and the food that I put in my body and the exercise and the attitude that I could possess. So I became optimistic-ish. And that truly, I believe, was what propelled me. Fear it can really paralyze a person, but given the right tools, you can use fear to galvanize you. And through integrative medicine and through the idea of the Eastern and Western philosophy completely combined in the treatment of a woman for breast cancer, I was able, I believe, to do extremely well on chemotherapy, do extremely well through radiation, sail through my surgeries, and thrive 15 years later. Am I still optimistic-ish? Yeah, I still worry every day, but I've been given the tools through Dr. Mehta, through people in his department, to empower me to not let that fear and not let that pessimism creep in to affect my overall wellness and health. So I'd like to say I'm a thriver, but a lot of it has to do with the tools that were given to me by professionals like Dr. Mehta. And let me add one other thing. I really want to say this to be true. My girlfriends, the friendships and the family and the people in your lives could be very toxic. But they can also be extremely healing, and having that openness and that mindfulness of your friendships and the power that you possess inside and out absolutely helps with your healing as well.
It's so interesting listening to your story. It's like, can I just say ditto?
Yeah. Exactly.
Honestly.
Exactly.
I did the integrative thing. I was diagnosed in 2008. My mom died from breast cancer when she was only 59. So what my reaction was, it was the movie of her life and death that flashed through my eyes.
Yeah.
But I received a very loud message that I was supposed to help others through my own dance with cancer. And I started, videotaping and documenting 4 hours afterwards. And same thing, it's I did the whole integrative thing, but I didn't know it was called integrative. It was just a part of my healing. I feel I'm very spiritual. I had a lot of training with shamans in Peru. So that came very deeply into my practice. Psychological also, that played a huge role. And yes, the movement, I wasn't as good with the movement. I will admit that. I used it as an excuse not to move so much, because my movement was about dancing. It's all about dancing. It still is about dancing. So when I was feeling good, I would dance with my girlfriends here at my house. But yeah. The eating, so I'm Cuban. Us Cubans are not the healthiest eater in the world. We're raised on we don't, if something is green on your plate, it's moldy. There's just no green in Cuban cuisine, which is so crazy. So my eating wasn't so great. So I learned, and I started juicing, vegetables and greens and ginger. Oh my God. First time I did that, I took a huge chunk because I didn't know, I almost died. But that became a huge part of my healing and my spiritual practice. So I'm 100%, I even struggled with the do I or do I not do chemo, which I call sacred juice, because it's sacred to me. It's healing. So that's what I call it. But I struggled with it, saying, if I believe this and this, yes, do I really need chemo?
Yes.
Right. And my decision was yes, and yeah, this and that. So I think we had a very similar journey, and you and I met, I think, right after I was diagnosed. This was 2008 when I was diagnosed.
Yes, I was diagnosed in 2006, and I met you in 2008. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just,
We've been friends ever since.
and we have, and the bond that, you know, that we have and that you have with other women who have been there is just so amazing. Have you, Dr. Mehta, like found differences in patients that really never did any of this integrative work, even through their healing, and a difference between those that do?
So interestingly, just as you mentioned, you know, oftentimes people are using these types of modalities, whether or not they're calling it integrative medicine or not. You know, it's sort of human nature to, you know, to draw upon your inner circle of trust, and have that support network available to you. You know, the wisdom of ancient healing traditions all over the world teaches us that we're not designed to heal individually. We're designed to heal collectively. So whether it's through art or music or dance, I mean, these are all modalities that have fallen under the auspices of an integrative approach, but people use these techniques whether or not they call it integrative medicine. And actually, you know, in mainstream medicine, we haven't really done a great job of creating that safe space, of creating that safe harbor where patients can communicate what kinds of things they are doing apart from just receiving the medications that we have prescribed.
True.
So oftentimes the nice thing about having an integrative consultative program is we create that safe space where people can ask about plant medicine. You know, there was a recent study that was done in Seattle that found that 25% of people who are using cannabis during their cancer treatment actually felt that their use of cannabis was helping to treat their cancer, which is kind of a misconception and has not played out in the science. You know, that's just one example, but there are infinite examples of things that, you know, teas that people are drinking, supplements that people are taking, you know, modalities that really are kind of a waste of time. And certainly a waste of money. So we use a very evidence-based and pragmatic approach to guide our patients. What kinds of things, you know, I tell my patients that, you know, because Memorial has such a comprehensive integrative program, I don't have to sell any additional modalities or vitamins or supplements or herbs in order to keep the lights on in my clinic. I have the luxury of being a 110% advocate for my patients, so I can guide them about where the science ends and the marketing begins, which is kind of a gray area.
Wow.
You know, so you know, we can include that too. You know, science-ish. There's a lot of studies out there that have been published, and it's not real good. They're not very good in terms of their scientific rigor. So we have to be very careful of that gray zone where that science ends and the marketing begins. That's where a lot of money is made. And so we have to be incredibly careful about guiding our patients towards what is really in the literature and what is evidence-based.
Wow. How does a woman even figure that out?
Well, you know, it's not easy. Without a degree, without a PhD in clinical epidemiology, it's really difficult to discover, is this a good clinical trial? You know, what was this really randomized? You know, I mean, the gold standard of science is the randomized controlled trial, but people use those terms all the time without really understanding what they mean. So you know, it's not easy, you know, to understand whether the science that supports this modality is actually really good. That's why, you know, we've got wonderful organizations like the Society for Integrative Oncology, which I have the pleasure of serving on the board for, and we have ASCO, and they are ASCO and Society for Integrative Oncology are now publishing clinical guidelines with regard to what types of integrative modalities are really useful. And in 2018, they published the guidelines in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute for breast cancer, which are the integrative modalities which have the best evidence. And so, really the science and these guidelines are catching up with what patients are asking about and what patients have been doing for a long time. And it gives us a really wonderful tool in order to guide our patients to what is proven and what is going to work and what will not be a waste of money, what will not be a waste of time.
Are you finding that across the country,
So
oncologists specifically are working hand in hand with integrative medicine doctors?
absolutely. I mean, we've been able to win the hearts, minds, and trust of our referring oncologists here at Memorial because they understand that it's an and not an either or. And they also understand that our litmus test for success, the way that we gauge our success, is how well we help them improve quality of life for the patients whom they're serving. So we are very much a part of the team. And when a patient comes in with a wheelbarrow full of supplements, they're not they have the opportunity to say, you know what, we have a great team. Why don't you go see our integrative medicine team? They're going to straighten you out, and please see them as soon as possible, because I don't know how many of these vitamins and supplements are actually counteracting the treatments that we have prescribed for you, the chemotherapy or whatever other treatments that their patients are on. So it's a really nice tool, and I find that oncologists have been very welcoming and very open-minded, and part of that stems from the fact that patients ask about, patients are empowered now. We are entering an era of the informed healthcare consumer. Patients know before they pick up the phone and call a breast surgeon here at Memorial, they know that we have a wonderful team of psychologists who are mind-body medicine trained, who can help address mood changes and anxiety and depression in the context of cancer treatment and in the survivorship period. We have a wonderful team of nutritionists. We have, our integrative medicine program. We have our nurse navigators. So Memorial has invested substantially in a comprehensive model of supportive care, of which we're very proud to play a role in our integrative medicine practice. So oncologists are very amenable because they have now additional resources when patients ask these questions. Does sugar feed cancer? What's the story about soy? Am I hydrating enough? All of these questions.
Answer those 3 questions.
Well, I think that, as it pertains to breast cancer, there is a lot of research that's been done on what type of soy is consumed. See, in the United States, we're the world's #1 producer of soybean. Nobody even comes close. And so what we do is we export as much as we can. We put a lot of it into animal feed, and then we have mountains of soybean left over. So we process that soybean into like a glue. We process it into like a paste. And then that soy paste becomes an additive into many different types of convenience foods.
It's over-processed, right?
It's incredibly processed, right? So
Right.
So that is the danger of soy, because when you process soybean, what you end up doing is you end up destroying the delicate plant-based estrogens. And what is left over is only the rugged those plant-based estrogens that are stronger and can survive the processing steps. The bombardment of cells with those rugged plant-based estrogens, that's what's dangerous for hormone receptor positive cancer, any hormone receptor positive cancer. And so the whole organic non-GMO soybean, edamame, tofu, soy milk that are not heavily processed, when whole organic soybean is at the very top of the ingredient list, that is a safe soy food to eat 2 to 3 times per week. So this whole concept that all plant-based estrogens are bad because they're going to feed your cancer is actually a very significant misconception that we have been able to address. And that is according to, there's a study called the LACE study, LACE, the LACE study, which actually affirms these concepts. When it comes to nutrition, people ask about fad diets, like, going full-blown vegan, or a ketogenic diet or a paleo diet. And the bottom line is that they've done studies on which types of sugars cancer cells love the most. And they found that fructose is a lot of patients come in and they're using honey or agave syrup as their sweetener. Well, that is pure fructose. And so they said they heard that sugar was bad. So they went to agave syrup and honey, which are actually just as bad, if not worse, than just regular old plain table sugar.
Oi, so what do you use?
Well, as a sweetener, we advocate for there's a wonderful sugar, but it doesn't count towards calories. It's called allulose. We use monk fruit. We use stevia. But the bottom line is that we can train our palate to tolerate less sweet, and that's the real goal. And so we don't advocate for sugar alcohols like erythritol and xylitol. And so bottom line is that, patients, anybody, all of us really could stand to eat more vegetables, fruit, and nuts and seeds, whole and cracked grains, cold water fish. These are foods that are part of our anti-inflammatory food pyramid that we share with everybody who walks through the door as kind of a baseline, as kind of a starting point. And then also the wonderful literature that's come out on fasting, periodic fasting. People ask about fasting and fasting mimicking diets and things of this nature. But what was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, the oncology subsection, showed that overnight fasting is actually one of the most important prognostic steps that you can that actually improves prognosis. So overnight fasting of 13 hours or more actually improves prognosis when it comes to living beyond breast cancer. And that was a very powerful study, again, published in JAMA. So these are how we kind of guide patients. Look, you don't have to starve yourself or just go, just drink water all day or just have, juices all day. But here's what you can do is from the last thing that you eat or drink in the evening time to the first thing that you eat or drink in the morning time, excluding water and any, no calorie herbal teas, that interval should be 13 hours. And so that's what we actually love printing out the study, printing out, 1 or 2 pages. I tell my patients, look, this is probably way more sciencey than you bargained for, but here you go. I'd like you to know where we're getting our information. So I'd like you to understand where our information comes from. Where do these recommendations that we're making, what are those studies that were done that support what we're talking about? And I think patients are very receptive to that. They have access to a treasure trove of information on the internet, but we guide them so that the information is accurate and sound and meaningful and is not mixed in with misinformation or heavy marketing.
That's so great. Carolyn, I see you as an exemplar of healthy living.
Yeah. Well, I think what I found with many breast cancer patients, especially in today's age where we have a wealth of information available to us in terms of our healthcare, is that when you're diagnosed with cancer, your brain sort of leaves your head and you start looking for what you think you need versus what you need. And I think that by having an integrative department, you don't have to look anymore. It's part and parcel to your treatment. So it takes away the breast cancer patient or any cancer patient who keeps searching until they hear what they want to hear versus what they need to hear. And I think that that's a huge step forward. Because in many ways we're running because it's hard to accept our diagnosis. But when you know that there's a team that's looking at Healthcareish, but that's looking at the issues that affect us differently, that we may have some power over, our diet, our mind. When you know that there are physicians and an entire department to be a part of that, I really believe that that's helping more women run to than run from. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great change, and it's growing. And there's so much evidence-based science that our physicians can share with us. I also like to tell patients all the time that, this whole thing about, and we see it with vaccines, people saying, I don't want that in my body, whatever, theory that they have, but yet they've done chemo. I always like to say that, we'll spend maybe 6 months of our lives being toxic, but we can spend the rest of our lives detoxifying.
Yes.
by eating the foods that enhance our health, by exercising and doing yoga, meditation, all the things that help us calm the acidity in our body, which we know is stress. It's cancer causing.
Mhm.
So I've learned so much because of integrative medicine about how to be a cancer patient and be optimistic about my future, because there are things I have control over.
Carolyn, you're one of our stars,
Thank you.
I must say that one of the most meaningful aspects of my work in integrative health is bearing witness to post-traumatic spiritual growth. And this is an entity, when patients, surmount tremendous health obstacles and then are inspired to reach out and help others and dedicate themselves to a cause, in whatever way, shape, or form, and in so many ways. And you both are really examples of that. How you have used this health challenge to inspire others and to help others. That is tangible post-traumatic spiritual growth, and it's just wonderful to see.
Thank you. That's so sweet. I never heard it called that.
Yeah, I like that.
I love that. Thank you. Carolyn, I have a question for you because I know you
Sure.
have experience with this, and I know that unfortunately many doctors don't ever raise this with cancer patients, with breast cancer patients, and that's lymphedema. Can you share
Yeah.
a little bit about that?
Well, sure. Lymphedema, I call the dirty little secret of breast cancer. It's something that doctors don't generally discuss. Doctors are getting better about it, but also the surgeries and the things that we have also lessened the risks associated with getting lymphedema. I want to make that clear. But again, lymphedema is think of it like a 5-lane highway. If you block one of the lanes in the highway, you're down to 4 lanes and everything backs up. Your lymphatic system is sort of like the coffee filter of your body, and everything flows from your neck to your groin. You're full of lymph nodes. When you have breast cancer, many times the doctors will remove a sentinel node, the surgeons, or during mastectomy or metastatic, in my case, local metastatic cancer, I had 13 lymph nodes removed. And I unfortunately got this awful condition called lymphedema, which is basically the backup of lymphatic fluid, because it can't flow properly because the system has been backed up. It can't think or behave the way it normally did because a piece of it was taken out. So what happens is, the unfortunate side effect is I always wear cancer on my sleeve every day. Even though I'm 15 years out, I constantly am reminded that I am a cancer patient, because I can't get manicures like most people can. I can't get massages on my body like most people can. I've had to limit my sports activities. I have to wear a compression sleeve when I fly. And the worst part of it is recently, like in the start of COVID, I got bit by a mosquito on my arm, and it went into a full-blown infection. It went from 0 to 60 in a matter of minutes, because the bacteria or the open skin, all of a sudden, it has nowhere to flow. The coffee filter that would normally move that bacteria and move those germs out, no longer can do that. So I got cellulitis within hours. And, look, I'll show you my arm. I have one arm larger than the other. I don't know if you could see it.
Yes.
My right arm
Yes.
is much larger. The fluid it just stays. It doesn't have the ability, it's backed up, so to speak. And we don't talk about it. What I really love to see in the future is that every physician, no matter what point you come in with a breast cancer diagnosis, whether it be the surgeon or the oncologist or Dr. Mehta, somebody is having a conversation and taking measurements of a woman's arm. Because by having a woman's arm measured, you open up the dialogue for a conversation about risk reduction, about prevention, not necessarily prevention, risk reduction. They're going to say, why are you measuring my arm? I have breast cancer. And you say, well, you're going to have surgery, and there's a potential that you could get lymphedema. Start looking it up now, because there are many things you can do for risk reduction. And I think that our physicians need to have the conversation and not wait, because if you wait until the patient shows signs, it's too late. It's incurable. It's a forever thing. So that's one of the changes I'd love to see, legislation, even something that could convince our physicians to measure a woman's arms.
Thank you. I think that's so important. And when I first learned about it through you, actually, I'm blessed that I don't have it, but I also wear a sleeve when I fly as prevention, right? And there's certain things, and then I'm shocked at how many women were never told anything. They have no clue. And it's not just breast cancer patients. I have a friend who had, I forgot what it was she had, but she actually ended up with lymphedema in the whole trunk of her body.
Oh, yes. Our good friend. Yes.
And it was like, it wasn't until she came to one of our groups and heard about this that she's like, oh my God, I think this is potentially lymphedema. It just makes no sense. I mean, do you have any experience with that, Dr. Mehta, treating that or anything else you'd like to share?
So what we have a wonderful physical therapy program that includes wrapping the arm, that includes massage, specific to moving those lymphatic fluids around. If you just to kind of go with the wonderful analogy you used, Carolyn, with the five lane highway, if there's a significant traffic jam that you encounter, on I-95 here, you have the option of sometimes taking some back roads, and it'll take a longer time. And yes, I 100% agree that it needs to be done proactively and preventatively, because once that scar tissue ends up forming, you can sometimes lose that whole lane forever. So finding alternate routes. There are modalities to do so, and there are studies that are being done with regard to therapeutic yoga, just using gravity, and massage, as well as the physical therapy that we apply, and again, the sooner the better. So all of the preventive steps that you've described are absolutely spot on. And I think that the science is evolving with regard to other modalities that can potentially be utilized in order to address lymphedema. So do stay tuned. But yeah, it's a very important point, and I think that I would also agree that we are very gradually doing a better job at communicating the risks, benefits, and alternatives of all of the treatment strategies that we recommend. Especially when it comes to lymphedema after removal of lymph nodes surgically.
And or radiation. You don't necessarily have to have lymph nodes removed in order to get lymphedema. And early diagnosis and early treatment can actually halt and sometimes stop the ongoing swelling of the arm or limb or truncal lymphedema. So it's so important.
So important. This is so
30% of breast cancer patients will be diagnosed with lymphedema, not just the day after surgery, but years. It could be 10 years after surgery or radiation. It's a lifetime of risk reduction.
Isn't there a website, like a nonprofit website or something? I think you had mentioned once that had some information on this.
Yes. The National Lymphedema Network, I highly recommend. From there, it could take you to many sites and many different modalities that are being used to treat lymphedema. And NLN, National Lymphatic Network.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Wow, this time has just flown by.
It's been great.
I would love to end it maybe with each of you saying, like, so someone who's watching or listening to us and was just diagnosed, or to their caregiver or loved one, if you could, I'll start with you, Dr. Mehta, if you could give them a little something to help them on their healing journey, what would that be?
I would say really bring together your team of coaches, your inner circle of trust, whom are going to run this marathon with you, because you're all impacted. You know, when I tell my clients who are coming in, listen, we have our team, you bring yours. And I would say that goal setting is also a real important art form in this journey. And so have your coaches together. Your coaches are going to include your medical team. So certainly your surgeon, your oncologist, your radiation oncologist, all the nurses, the nurse practitioners, the nurse navigators, all of those individuals who are going to comprise your cancer journey Rolodex. And then also people in your family, your friends, people who are going to hold you accountable to implementing some of these positive health behaviors. Are you going to use an exercise buddy? Are you going to connect with somebody to be consistent with your meditation practice? Again, we heal collectively, not as individuals, and we heal within a family, within a community. So rally your community is what I would say for somebody who has recently been diagnosed. And I would also say, you know, stick to very evidence-based sources for information. Be careful with Googling things and reading reviews, because, you know, oftentimes a lot of that information is designed to sell product, and it might not be completely beneficial for you. And lastly, just, you know, be the squeaky wheel. You know, oftentimes there's this unfortunate misconception that we have to suffer in silence. So many of our breast cancer patients are matriarchs of families, and they've taken care of 3 different generations: a senior generation, their parents' generation, their spouse, and junior generations. And in the context of all of their caregiving responsibilities, they have lost sight of their own health. They've neglected their own health. And so really reprioritizing ourselves. We have actually a mantra of the matriarchs, which is me first, my space, my time, my health, my peace of mind, me first. So really, you know, like they say, putting the mask on yourself first, and then administering assistance to those around you if you're on an airplane and you need oxygen all of a sudden. It's the same concept when you're going through breast cancer treatment. So reprioritize yourself, rally your inner circle of trust, be mindful of information versus misinformation, and don't hesitate to be the squeaky wheel and get the help that you need when you feel like you need it, because a lot of these modalities, they work sooner rather than later. So if the more proactive you can be for yourself, and the more of an advocate you can be for yourself, to that degree, you will be running this journey of this marathon of cancer treatment most effectively, and you will have improvement in your quality of life throughout the journey.
That is so beautiful. Thank you. Wow. Yes, Carolyn.
Oh, I'm so excited. I have to. That was so good, Dr. Mehta.
Yeah.
So good. Like, it's so good to have you in our corner. I have 2 expressions. The first one I always say is, a pessimist finds the difficulty in every opportunity, and an optimist finds the opportunity in every difficulty. And I like to believe that that is the case, hopefully, for most breast cancer patients and for cancer patients in general, that they can look to this as an opportunity for better health, better mental health, better diet, better exercise, better relationships, and use it positively. It's not a negative if you use it right. And my second expression is, the light shines where the wound once was. And to me, the greatest gifts have been the past 15 years, the light that has shined from this diagnosis of breast cancer patient, again, with the people I love, with how I treat people, with what I have done with my free time, how I help others. And there's light. And the friendships through the Link of Hope Sisters that Patricia created, the support groups, there's light. The wound was there, but now there's light.
I love that. I
Thank
love
you.
that. There's a Japanese saying, which I can't remember, but it's about the cracks.
Yes,
I don't know if you've heard that. Something
I
about
have.
that's where the gold goes into those cracks.
exactly.
And I love that. You know, for me, I think it was I never looked at the diagnosis as something I was going to fight, that I was going to battle. I welcomed the cancer diagnosis as an uninvited visitor that I was going to learn from and gain blessings from, which is very strange, but it was just something that I felt from the moment I heard those words that none of us want to hear. And I've been diagnosed twice, because I had breast cancer, and then like 3 years later, I had melanoma. Looks like I had someone took a bite out of my arm. But there are so many blessings, as you said, that come from this. The people that you meet, the good that you're able to do with it, the way we live our life. You know, I mean, it's such a corny saying, but you know, it's like, don't sweat the small stuff. It can't be more true. Everything is small stuff. You know, so
True.
when you go like something like this, it just really changes your perspective on life. And honestly, for me, peace is my North Star. And I think I've gained that deep sense of peace because of, in spite of my cancer journey. So for anyone that's diagnosed, you know, just breathe, set up a space in your house. This for me is so important. I created a sacred space in my house that I have my sacred stones from Machu Picchu. I have, you know, whatever it is that works for you. Create a sacred space. Bring music into your life, music that is healing. For me, it's Native American, like flute music. That's so healing for me. Burning sage, you know, things like that. It puts me into this space of total and complete peace. And whether we call it meditation or whether we call it just being and sensing who we really are, it just, to me, that was such a huge part of my healing journey, along with the amazing doctors that I had, and along with my angels, which were my friends who carried me on their wings to healing, and my mom. So I feel very blessed, and so blessed to have you both join us today as we redefine health-ish and take away that little ish, that huge ish, and make it health with strength and power.
Thank you so much, Pat. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you both so much. Honestly, thank you.
We love you.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.